we've all seen that note there. We are recording this. I hope everybody doesn't mind, but I feel it's such a great opportunity to be sharing experiences with Nick, Sue and Vanessa tonight, that I hope those that can't join us now will be able to watch it later. A little bit more about Sue's background. She grew up racing in the UK. She's raced in 15 Hobarts. She's done Fastnet races, Transpac, Big Maui's from the west coast of the USA to Hawaii. She's raced on the 100-footer Wild Thing for 5 of her Hobart races. And she has also been involved with numerous Olympic and Paralympic sailing teams as the lead physiotherapist. Vanessa, who I'm sure many of you know, is also an incredibly accomplished sailor who really has sailed everything from all sorts of dinghies, including moths, way back when they were sea huggers, and the iconic 18-foot skiffs that Vanessa and I were fortunate enough to spend a season together on, and as well as Vanessa's ocean racing career, where we've seen her. We know she's done a lot of offshore racing, but it includes 20 Sydney to Hobart yacht races, which hats off to her for that. And of course, we have Nick Douglas, who is Sailor Girl. Nick herself is a world champion 3 times in the Taser class, but she has sailed all sorts of things. You know, she's campaigned for Olympics. And what's terrific about Nick, she covers a lot of sailing events around the world, and I just love the way that she is always honing in on exactly what a sailor wants to know. So welcome, Nick, and thanks for helping us out with our night tonight. What we are going to do now is we are going to mute everybody, and if you do have a question while we're going along, please type it into the chat room, and Nick and I will be monitoring it, and then a bit later on when we get to a break or a logical place, we will actually invite you to turn your screen on and bring you up and actually ask the question yourself. So we're just trying to make today's session a little bit more interactive. So that would be great. I think that's it for me. If I missed anything, Nick, I'm going to hand over to you, and we'll then get started with Sue.
Sounds like a plan. Hi, everybody. I'm Nick. Karen and I, as she mentioned, will be monitoring the chat section if you want to talk. And because we're recording it, we'll just keep everybody on mute so that we can hear everything that that our guests want to say. We have presentations from both Sue and Vanessa to follow along with, and we'll have question time at the end of each, and then at the end as well. So I'm sure that Sue will stick around for Vanessa's chat too. So if you think of anything burning while Vanessa's talking for Sue, she'll take that on as well. So I'm going to quickly handball it over to Sue, and I'm going to unmute you, Sue, because I did mute everybody. Apologies for that. And she's ready to go. Alrighty, I'll spotlight you now. Excellent.
Give me the buzzer. Right, sounds like I'm on. Is that right?
Go for it.
All right. Well, welcome, ladies and gentlemen that sail. Hopefully that's our common denominator. I can only see 4 or 5 of you. I haven't got the big screen, but I welcome each of you. Oh, there's a little man there. Hello. What I'd like to do is explain, as Karen kindly described me, as a bit of a, I wouldn't say jack of all trades, but I've got experience over, first of all, the sailing background, as she described, but also working as a physiotherapist with Olympic sailors and Paralympic. This talk that I'm going to go through is, I've modified it from anywhere between the kiddies at toddler level almost, right through club level, right through Olympic, right up to Paralympic, Volvo, America's Cup. So the sailors that I'm dealing with have a wide range of bodies, as you can imagine. None of us are the same, and most of us have got a background in something else, even if we've grown up with sailing. So when I go through these things, what I'll try and do, not so easy to hear Sue. Right. Did anyone get that message? Is that better?
I did get that message, but I'm going okay with your volume. I could suggest perhaps, Jenny, have you got your volume up at max, or a set of headphones maybe might help too, depending on the device you're on. Is everybody able to hear Sue?
Better.
Thumbs up.
Yeah.
You're okay, Kirsten? Okay. The only other, yeah, maybe we'll see how we go.
All right. Well, look, what I'm going to do, I'm going to go through a PowerPoint for you guys. So if you'd like to click on that for me, PowerPoint lady. Thank you, Nick. What I call my little talk and my process is FABS, the functional analysis for the biomechanics of sailing, which sounds like a bit of a mouthful, but it means quite a lot to me, because one of my big things as a physiotherapist is obviously looking at the body. One of my things when I sail is looking at not just the boat, not just the mast and the rig, the sails, and how everything comes together to provide the best performance. Now, when you guys go sailing, I'm assuming, because it's the same for everybody I know, whether Olympic or Paralympic, Volvo, whatever, you actually do want to enjoy your sport. We're not here just to get wet and cold and achieve gold medals. We're actually here to enjoy our sport. And the main thing for me is that if you're not enjoying what you do, you're not going to make it as easy as possible. The body is probably going to go through stages of not feeling the most comfortable. There's a lot of things that you do throughout the day which promote certain activities. It's a strange old thing, the body. If you do a lot of one thing, it will think that you want to practice that. And I'll bring that in later. Click. If I do that, does that a good click noise for Nick? Is that a click? There we go. So does everyone, actually, it's such a shame I can't hear everyone, because everyone should be going, ooh, you're going to get wet. Don't let the weather stop you. Now, this beautiful day, yeah, thank you. Thumbs up, it's good. When you go sailing, sometimes you get as wet as this. Sometimes you get as sunny, dry champagne sailing. Now, most of us prefer champagne sailing, myself included. Now, as Karen kindly explained, I've done this race. I've done this 9 months of getting wet. 30 days and 30 nights was my longest leg in the Southern Ocean. And when I did the Volvo, it was called the Whitbread, we were down there with icebergs to port, which is pretty exciting when your radar doesn't work too well. But in the end, what we all do, some of you are sailing around the Cairns and the harbour, some of you are sailing offshore, some of you have got goals to sail further, maybe to Hobart, but you're all enjoying different parts of sailing. Click, click, we need one of these. Get back there. Right, the Volvo Ocean Race. So here we are going down a wave. We call it going down the mine. Has anyone got as wet as that? You can stick your hand up or raise your glass. Anyone got as wet as that? That is something that you maybe only do for an afternoon sailing and you come back and you talk about it. Maybe you do it overnight, but it's all good stories. It's all part of how you're going to make that boat go as fast as possible. So this is obviously the Volvo. This is the Green Dragon. So these guys I knew from Olympic sailing, and I also worked as physio for them. But I always made sure I was out on the boat whenever I could, because I needed to see the biomechanics. Click on, Nick, for me, please. This is what, not very good photo, but this is what sailing in the Southern Ocean can be. That's not me, but that's what I've done. We were sewing up sails with snow coming down over the mainsail, snow on the winches, and snow below. So there are good things about sailing. There's also some wet and wild, crazy stuff. Next, click on there. Thank you. So as we say, going down the mines. Now that boat, hopefully that boat pops up and everything's still attached. But you can imagine the loads on the boats that you guys are sailing, the boats that these guys are sailing. It's all proportional, but it's still loads. And as you can imagine, it's not just loads on the boat. The people at the back of the boat, they're coming to a full stop. It's a little bit like driving into a concrete wall. Your body will react to an immediate stop. And these are part of the things that, depending on the speed you're going and depending on the maneuver that you're doing, it's all part of treating your body as part of the boat. Click on again, Nick. Thank you. Okay, so these guys are grinding. How many of you guys have stood up to do any grinding? Most of you are over the winch. Yep. Standing up over the grind, over the pedestals is quite a different technique. Standing up over a wheel is very different to working on a tiller. There's so many different jobs on a boat, and I think Vanessa is going to go through a little bit of how a coordinated team actually gets together and what the roles involve. But everybody has a role on the boat, but you do have to know how the other roles perform. And the whole point is that you're trying to make everyone else's job as biomechanically friendly as possible. Next one, Nick. So this is a few of the team that I've sailed with. I was actually at university with a couple of these guys doing team racing back in England. So this is where we've all come from. The bottom level, I'll call it bottom, it's the small boat level of sailing, and gone into professional sailing. So there are steps involved. Right place, right time always helps. But if you want to go sailing in the Southern Ocean like that, that's maybe that's not what you want to do, but it's all good fun. Okay, next clip. So my philosophy is, if you increase, hang on, hold it. If you increase your boat maintenance, you will expect to achieve a better boat performance. Click. If you increase your crew maintenance, click, you should get better crew performance. And if you increase both, you will have increased overall performance, both boat and crew. So my trick here is to say the boat is as much part of the crew and the boat. You need to maintain them both. And this is the big trick, whether you're a regatta sailor, a dinghy sailor, a club sailor, it's all part of the systems. Next one, thank you. Okay. All right, now slow down here. This is the tricky one. Everybody here has got a pelvis. You all know what your pelvis is? It's the lump of, where we go, that little group of bones, the basket of bones, all around your butt. Oh, you know what I'm doing, don't you? Oops. Basically, you've all got a spine. This is your spine, and these are the curves that it should have. The boat itself. Hang on, get me back.
Anna, show us the spine, show us the hips.
Okay.
So I'm excited.
The pelvis, all right? These are the bones of the pelvis. Now, before I do anything, have we got any doctors, nurses, physios, anyone else in the group? Please press your buzzer and unmute yourself before I start talking anatomy. It's always good to know who I'm talking to. No? You're all hiding. All right, so the pelvis. You have the pelvis, the group of basket of bones, and this is supporting your body. Think of this as being the hull of the boat. This is your spine, and this is the rig. This is the mast. You've got side spreaders that stop your mast falling over sideways. You've got a forestay and you've got a backstay. Now, not in laser sailing. I know there's probably some laser sailors there, but you have stays holding your back stayed up. And in my world, you also have muscles which are holding your back up. Now, these muscles, if you walk around with a 25-knot rig tension all day, things will start to wear out. So the story is, with your boat, you don't leave it tuned at 25 knots, which is basically everything has been tightened up all the way around the boat, and you're compressing that mast, because if you tightened this spine up and these muscles up too tight, you will compress that mast and it could skid out just like any mast could. And these little discs here, which allow the movement, which obviously the mast doesn't have, these can actually slip, we call them, or burst. And this is where a lot of back problems come from, that you've over strengthened or over activated, is probably what's happening, these muscles. Whenever you come back to the dock, you ease off all your sails, don't you? You don't take your mainsail down without easing the outboard, easing the Cunningham, and you let the halyard down. You detune the boat, or de-rig the boat. Do you de-rig your body? When you go sailing, when you rig it, when you actually put the sails on and you increase the tension depending on the sails. So if we just start sliding my boat anatomy, so slide the first boat anatomy along. Give me a click. Nick, thank you. So the first one here you can see is sideways on the pelvis. I call it the hull. The mast is the rig. The backstay are your deep back muscles. The forestay are your core stability. And if you go to the sideways one, your spreaders here, which spread the load of your rigging, they're spreading the load. Now, a lot of you are walking around with a plank as your spreaders and a pipe cleaner as your mast gate. The mast gate is the thing that sits on either on the deck or on the actual hull. And what happens here is, we say, with the feet, the legs actually become the keel. And if we've got the next photo in the right place, we can all talk about it being the canting keel. Does that make sense? So everything in a boat and everything in a body has a symmetry. Now, I can see somebody laughing there. Who's that? Kirsten, is that you? Or are you talking to your children? See, the people I can see, I can grab hold of. Anyway, so next clip. Okay, so again, without getting too complicated, when you look at your boat on the dock, your pelvis should be level. The hull of the boat should be level. Now, if you end up trying to tune that mast, next photo, back into the middle with the hull, with water in one of the ballast tanks, you will end up with a side bend of your mast. And if you put the rigging tension in on the next clip, you'll see that you need a lot tighter rigging on one side to keep that mast upright. Now, you imagine that boat sailing on port and starboard. It will have really different sail shapes on either side. So the trick is here, and this is a bit of an overall view, your pelvis is the key to your movement. And when you guys experience anything that you do any day now, a lot of you will have had children. When you're having that child sit on your hip, have you found a lot of you have got your pelvis tilted on that side? you end up with a C shape of your back. It's something that you go through when you have children. I haven't had children, but I've seen them around. There's a lot going on with your back. This is the engine of your body. And if your pelvis, as I explained, isn't symmetrical when you first get on the boat, now when you go sailing, you can go out there with a nice level pelvis and a nice even rig tension, everything's symmetrical. But until you go sailing with 5 knots or 10 knots or 25 knots, you're not going to know whether those parts of the rig have actually got loaded up in a different way, a more extreme way. So what I do is look at the body in the clinic, which is at the boat park or at the dock, and then I load up the body to find out what the asymmetries are. Now, if all of you fold your arms, I'm watching you, I can see you all. So just fold your arms as in a normal fold, and you're right, put your hand there, Nick, I can see it. There you go. No, fold your arms, not cross your arms, fold your arms. Now fold it the other way around and see how it feels. Does everyone, most of you finding it's a little strange? So what's happening? This is a completely symmetrical movement. Your bodies are doing exactly the same thing on each side, but most of you are dominant on one side and less dominant on the other. But your body has taught itself that that feels normal. So for those of you holding a child, you'll feel that that becomes more and more normal, and to actually be more neutral, more symmetrical, feels like you're actually leaning the other way. And this is what part of postural correction is. Now, we'll talk about stretches in a moment, and I won't go through actual stretches because the reason for stretches are twofold. One, because you have short muscles, and there's a lot of people walking around like this who have short muscles here, and these muscles are stretched. And you can stretch these back into a normal symmetrical position. But the other part of stretching is actually every time you use a muscle, you shorten it. Every time you pull that spinnaker sheet, you shorten that muscle. So to get it back to the right length, you need to stretch it out. And this is why I'm talking about when you rig your body, when you rig your boat, you need to rig your body. You need to do warm-up stretches to get that blue tack. Remember when in the old days of blue tack, when you used to put something on the wall, and if it was soft, it would be stretchy, but if it was cold, it would break. This is why you need a warm muscle and warm circulation to get the stretches moving before you go sailing. And when you're out sailing, sometimes you need a little bit more backstay, you need more outboard, you need more Cunningham, you need more halyard tension. You're increasing the tensions in your body, increasing the tensions in your boat, but you need to bring them back to dock settings when you come back. Anyway, next one. Okay, so again, this is just very quickly the pelvis tilt. So you can see that these are analogies. You've all heard of spinal scoliosis, which is the twist, which is the C bend. So depending which way that C bend is, same thing happens. Let me click again. This is where your body can actually start to mimic what goes on the boat. And click again. So, okay, so I call it a mad idea, but it makes a difference. Click, click, click. Make a difference. Perfect. Next one. So the canting keel, I'll just go through that because we've all heard about canting keels. Crazy maneuvers. You've all seen that picture of Alex Thompson with the boat on its side and the canting keel is out the side and he's standing on it. You've all seen the one where he climbs to the top of the rig and swan dives off it. But that canting keel creates more righting movement. So if you've got something you're holding on the baby side, to make you more symmetrical, are you going to put more load on this side, or are you actually going to get the boat back in the middle and the pelvis and the centerboard back in the middle so that you can actually sail the boat? Next one. Next one. So sitting, when you're sailing, whether you're laser sailing, this is obviously offshore sailing, eating lovely freeze-dried food, which is not very good for you, but we've all done it. 30 days and 30 nights doesn't really help. Next one. This is a picture. I know it's coming up. Does anyone recognize that picture? Stick your hands in the air if you recognize anyone that sits at a desk like this. Now that spine in that picture is not right, okay? Now, when you're working at your desk, you have to sit at the desk, all right? Your body has to go into that shape. However, the more you sit like that, now is that the same way around for video? It's not, is it? Is that the same way around? Have I got that the same way around? Yep. So basically when you're sitting in that position, you are putting each one of these bones into a compressed at the front position. Now, the curves in your spine neutrally, in neutral, should have a C bend here, should have a C bend here, and there should be another little curve here. We call it the S bend, all right? So what happens, that's neutral. That means all the muscles, a bit like a tent, a bit like the mast, will have equal tension on each side. If you sit like this for 8 hours a day, those muscles start to feel, a bit like the folded arms, that is normal. Now, who steers the boat? Stick your hands up if you're steering the boat, tiller or wheel. Good. So when you're sitting, steering the boat in that position, this is what happens, isn't it? You're sitting there, you're looking forward, you're looking back, and you're also looking up. And what will happen with your neck is that bit there gets compressed. Every time you lift your head up like this, you're not moving your whole back, you're moving those very small bones here, which again can cause compression in the nerves, can cause tingling in your hands, can cause lack of strength in your hands. And the laser sailors, the single-handed dinghy sailors, they will have a lot of this problem. Now, yes, they're trying to keep their body weight out. The 470 says any sailor that hikes, any sailor on trapeze. But this, what I'm saying is here, that if you keep doing this for 8 hours, the body will start to create this posture. And the muscles around here will end up working so hard, and these will end up not working at all. So you get neck strain, you get back strain, you get headaches. So the story is, it's a bit like we say to the golfers, for every 10 strokes that way, do 1 that way. Okay? For every time you fold your arms that way, do 1 like this. For every time you clean your teeth with your dominant side, try to start with cleaning it with your non-dominant side, and you'll find you do a hopeless job. Your arm will go up, you'll get fatigued, you'll end up with smelly breath. Make sure you go and do it with your proper hand afterwards, but keep doing it, and the muscles will start to realize what they're doing is actually achievable. Okay, next one. Okay, now this is I did actually mean to put a laser sailor in here to show you the position, but this is the trick, as we were saying before. Sailors are made up of so many different shapes. Everyone in this chat room is a different shape. The Olympic sailors, we've got 42 kilo people who are sailing, and we've got other people who are 120 kilos sailing. So you haven't got a complete range of stretches for everyone that fits everyone. You're all individuals. Some of you are working at desks, some of you are picking children up, some of you are working in building sites, some of you are, some of you are physios, some of you are doing so many things, and it's the same on the boat. You've all got different jobs, and you bring what your body is used to into that job. And again, this is what we were talking with Karen a little bit and Vanessa today. How many times does a coach from outside the boat look at you and tell you something, and you're thinking, I thought I was doing that. But to look at you from outside the boat, they're looking at what the boat's doing. I look at what the body is doing to achieve what the boat needs to do. So it's a real combination. Okay, next one. Just got a slow thumb here sometimes, Nick, haven't you? All right, so what is FAB? So we'll go through this quite quickly. The functional analysis of the biomechanics of sailing. In other words, how does this relate to you guys sailing as you would have done this weekend? How does it relate to you sailing on the twilights? How does it relate to you sailing at weekends? And how does it relate to what you want to do in the future? Does it want to keep going into those systems, or do you want to change? Do you want to go into a different class? Next one. Oh, missed that one. So these, as Nick's doing very well here, are all parts of the biomechanics of sailing. Now, these are areas of professionals. These are areas of assessments. Now, who's got time to go and get assessed for the aerobic fitness, anaerobic fitness, core stability, recovery? No one's got time to do anything these days, even though none of us are going overseas or even going further than 5Ks. However, they are areas of analysis, like cleaning your teeth. Which side are you doing it? When you pick the kettle up, which hand are you using? You all know that every job you do on a boat needs to be performed equally on the other side of the boat. It's about the only sport that is so symmetrical. Now, even the swimmers, they're still doing roll turns, and most of those are asymmetrical. It's a wonderful thing for me to have this spine and have my sport being symmetrical. Because in the end, if you're not symmetrical, you're just loading up areas of the boat that don't need to be loaded up. Now, if you're sailing once a week, once every 2 weeks, it's not going to start wearing away as quickly as if you're an Olympic sailor sailing every day, or around the world sailor who's actually consolidating those bad habits. But all we want you to do is to last longer at the sport that you do. And I think if you last longer, it's probably because you've got less pain and you can do a better job. And I think you probably enjoy it more. Next one. I've only got 2 minutes to go here, I think. Okay, so I called it the test principle. I thought I'd put this one in here. We all know life costs, right? Time and effort, T and E equals dollars. But to me, sometimes when you spend your dollars, you end up saving dollars. You end up saving time. And it's called prevention. And this is where, again, has anyone been to a physio in their lives? Normally, or an osteopath or a chiropractor, there's nothing wrong with any of these people. Everybody has their everyone has their expertise to bring. I mean, the smell of lavender, if that helps your pain, please use it. But in the end, prevention is better than cure. So if you're walking around like this all day and you end up going sailing, you will have a different outcome with your body for every day that you go sailing. If we can change your symmetry. Now, the thing is, this is where, again, I can't give the answers over the phone, but if you've got one leg longer than the other, you will have a tilted pelvis. If you've got a pelvis that's shifted because you've had, I don't know, an accident in the past and that's changed how your spine works, that will also change your systems. So it's the type of thing where a little bit the coach comes to look at your boat, to get someone to look outside and look at you from the back, the front, and the sides. This is what the rig tuners do. This is what your body needs. And in the end, it doesn't matter what level you are. Your body needs care and attention. All right, look after it. Next one. Okay, quick graph there. And the next one. The way ahead. All right, initial goals. This is what we're talking about. Improve your sailing fitness. Now, I talk a lot about sport-specific fitness, because we all know once you get to the end of a 3 or 4 day regatta, how much easier are the techniques, how much easier is the teamwork. The body has learned its techniques. You've taught it by trial and error, by enforcing them, how to sail better. Isn't it a shame you weren't all as good as that at the beginning of the actual regatta? We all say it doesn't matter what level you are, we all are better when we've done 4 or 5 days racing. So the trick is improve your sailing fitness. All right, it really is. Now, I'll talk to you about that later. It really is important to know what we're trying to achieve. Now, again, the bow person is going to be doing a different job to the runners. However, it's really important you all know what you're trying to achieve. And again, this is where to be trying out these different roles in different times is actually helping you to understand the little tricks that help those people do their jobs. And it's the same with your body. For example, that position sitting like this, when you're trimming the spinnaker, if I don't keep doing this every time I hear something or I do something, I end up the most terrible pain in my neck and shoulders. But I've done 9 months sailing straight. But if I didn't do it, I learned by trial and error, it's going to give me some grief. So there's so many things: how you lift, how you move sails, how you wind a winch, where you're sitting to do the jobs that you do. And I think Vanessa's going to talk a lot about this, is how to look around you and see how other people do their jobs. Okay, next one. Okay, reduce opportunity performance limiting injury. My big thing whenever I work with boats, with people, how they lift sails absolutely drives me nuts. Do you know there were 80% of injuries that I dealt with when I worked with the America's Cup, the GBR one in New Zealand, were due to lifting sails. It was ridiculous. There was no coordination, no connection, and basically everyone just carries those heavy sails along the dock. Now, I always say strength. Now, strength is a funny thing. If I can steer a 100-footer, if I can trim a 100-footer, it's not strength. I mean, they are muscles, but they're not going to lift a 100-foot mast, a 100-foot main along the dock. Those guys are bigger than me. They have a different power to weight ratio. I have to be better at what I do to achieve what they achieve in certain areas. But if they can't carry that sail and I'm not in the middle carrying that little bit, they can't carry it either. And this is something to be really aware of. A lot of people say strength, strength, strength. Well, no. It's not the only thing that's going to get you into a boat and sailing well. It's actually having a think about what you're trying to achieve. And it's the same with your body. Think about what you're going to try and achieve. How many reps have you got on the winch? How many reps should you have? And what can you do to make those biomechanics easier or more productive? And sometimes it's less reps because you can't ease it when you have too many reps. So the same as the body. When you go and lift a heavy object and suddenly what you thought was the heavy object is lighter than what you thought it was, how many of us have done that and all the muscles misfire? Now that's just what's happening when you're trying to sail a boat, when you've got a spinnaker that's set up for 25 knots where everything's as tight as possible. Everything starts to stretch, everything starts to break. Now it doesn't break until you go sailing in 5 knots. You stick it up and all the tapes run down. Has anyone ever had that happen? And everyone says, well, what's wrong with that sail? It's only 5 knots. It must be the sailmaker. Well, it's what you're doing with it, how you pack it up, how you keep its long life. But don't forget your body. You can't go to a body chandlery. You only have one where you can go and get bits and pieces, but it's important. All right, next one. Okay, if injured, fast track your return to sport and reduce the chance of injury reoccurrence. Now, I won't labour this point too much, but most of you go on an ankle, you go and see the physio, you do your exercises, but you don't get it to the right level. You get it to the level that everyone ticks it off in the gym and maybe going for a run around the local area. But until you can actually move that ankle in really uneven surfaces where things are getting pushed at you, you're getting knocked over, the sails are all everywhere, you haven't got that ankle back to its right position, because all those tears, all those little strains, they don't heal as ligament, they don't heal as muscle, they heal as scar tissue. And scar tissue basically binds down. Now, I do need your reactions here. If you can imagine, you've got a piece of elastic and you tie it to a piece of, call it main sheet, and you tie that to a sail tie. So this bit of material with 3 parts, one of you's holding one end and one of you's holding the other, and you gently pull it apart. Which bit stretches first? Put your hand up if you think the sail tie is the bit that stretches first. If you think the bit of main sheet stretches first, or if you think the bit of elastic stretches first. Okay, so you've got elastic, you've got main sheet.
Sarah Ladd has an answer for you. You can unmute and try and answer if you like, Sarah.
I was going to say that it would be the elastic that stretches first.
Excellent. You are obviously a biomechanist or an engineer. Elasticity goes down the path of least resistance. So if you do a stretch, okay, and you've got a bit of tissue that's like the sail tie, got knots in it, you can't undo them. It'll only undo if you work at it, okay? But if you stretch that ankle, the bits that stretch first will be the stretchy bits. Same with your back. The stretchy bits will stretch first and the stiff bits will stay stiff. So this is where sometimes getting into these knots of the sail tie or wherever you have these knots is the only way to go. But you can't find them unless you actually poke them really hard. You can't see what they're attached to. And this is where a boat rigging and a body rigging are wonderful analogies. Okay, keep going. We're nearly at the end. Is everyone getting this? Am I on the right level here? Is that a tick good? Right, so as I said, cost effective and time effective program. You haven't got time for this, but if you can start thinking about these things in terms of your sailing enjoyment and performance, you can sneak things in. It's not doing an hour of exercise a day. I can't bear the idea of doing an hour of exercise a day. It's what you do, little bits and pieces all day. How you get in and out of the car, how you get on your bike. How many people get on your bike, standing on your left foot, getting your right foot on? Try doing the other way. I had a horse in Africa. I had to get on from the opposite side because this vet said do it. And I went, wow, you're with me. I've never done it. And it feels very strange. But all the little things that you do have all molded your body to thinking it's in the gym. It doesn't know it's not in the gym. It thinks you're there trying to achieve something. Okay, next one. Train smarter, not harder. That's my favorite. And the next one. Okay. Improved FABs at initial intervention is clinically proven to result in performance improvements and cash savings. Okay, so whoever you are, whether you're the manager, the Olympic manager, the budget man, the accountant, or you, it's going to tick the boxes for everyone. And what it is, it's actually analyzing yourself to be as much part of the boat as all the rest of it. A couple more. Okay, get rid of that one. That's just so you know who I am. That's my references. And that's those 2 windows there are those windows there. So if you all wave at that picture, I'll wave back and thank you for coming. And I will take questions.
You lucky duck.
I know. Good for ducks. Except it's dark at the moment and it's blowing about 25 knots and the boats are kind of rearing up and we're up Sailors Bay, so it's not as but you know, I'm not complaining. Anyway,
that's amazing. I'm going to stop the share so I can just bring you back into the spotlight. And I have to say that I personally really loved the bit where you spoke about strength, because for me, my whole life starting sailing as a little girl with all the guys at the yacht club, it was definitely about technique for me. So that definitely stuck with me. But Kirsten, do you want to ask your question and then we'll see if anybody else has any questions?
Hey, so I was wondering whether you could have a tip for whatever, 3 minutes, 5 minutes warm up when you go on the boat, because of course we do a lot with putting up the sails and preparing everything. What could I do to prepare my body?
Okay. Well, look, I'll tell you what, it depends how much time whether you want to get this really right or whether you just want to be averagely right. Now, the things you do on the boat, do you remember I was talking about the blue tack? If it's warm, remember when you break a bit of blue tack, if it's warm, it stretches. If it's cold, it breaks. So the trick is before you get down to the boat, walk fast down the dock. All right, walk yourself round and around the block a few times, get everything moving, and then it will be a lot more effective to do the stretches. Everything you do on the boat, okay, these movements, yes, do those as a stretch, but also do the opposite. All right. So basically everything you do on the boat, and there was a Kiwi sailor who once did an article about this, everything he did on the boat, he did the opposite in the gym. So if you're lifting like this all day, do it the other way around. Do your triceps. Yeah. So your back is your engine room. So you can't just stretch your arms to do that. Your back needs to be moved. And it's not just forwards and backwards. The body works in diagonals. So if you're doing this, it's a lot more effective than doing this. Okay. The situation is with most of you, you are asymmetrical. What my biggest advice would be, yes, you can go through all the movements you do on the boat, do the opposites, like do them, but do the opposites. And this is for your de-rigging as well. This is for your rigging your boat, rigging your body, de-rig your boat, de-rig your body, and pick something that you're doing. If you're doing the kite sheets, when you put the kite sheets on, every time you put it through a block, do something that actually, like pull your chin in. If you all pull your chin in, this is what's happening when you're doing this, your trimming of the spinnaker, you're looking up and you remember you're compressing the back of your cervical spine. So instead of doing that, put yourself back into neutral and tuck your chin in. So do that whenever you put something through a block. And what will happen, it will bring your body back to its neutral. It will also ask it to actually remember the range of movement that it needs to do, or it's got options to do. And you're in a system where if you really want to do something about it, go and see a physio. And there are recommended physios. Most physios can deal with the information that you're going to give them, but not a lot of physios sail. So understanding what your body is doing as a symmetry. Like, for example, most people, and you can't really tell here, if you're right-armed, right-handed, you will often have a shoulder a little bit higher than the other, and you will actually have a C shape because the muscles on this side are just that little bit more developed. Now, again, you can keep accentuating that, or you can try and put yourself back and get your left side a little bit stronger and a bit more flexible and a little bit more active. But again, it depends how much time you want to spend. But what I would do, the best thing is to get warm, do the movements that you do on the boat, split them up. So as you rig the boat, you bring those movements in and do the opposites at the same time. So everything you do what you need to do and then bring it back the other way. Does that give you a little hint?
Sounds good to me. I'm getting thumbs up from Kirsten.
Yeah, but don't forget, bring it back. When you rig your boat, rig your body. When you de-rig your boat, de-rig your body. Because if you don't bring it back to where it should be, it will walk around like this all day because that's what you just taught it to do. It's got no idea. And even at the traffic lights, bring yourself back to that neutral posture. Now, most of you don't know what neutral posture is. Most people are standing, walking, I'm exaggerating, I'm walking like, yeah, pelvis is here, trunk's here, nice little S bend. There's a lot of people doing that. Now, that isn't just COVID tummies. That's actually posture. You can see how the pelvis is tilted. Yeah, pelvis tilted, too much backstay, not enough forestay, and spreaders look like trunks. Anyway.
Thank you very much, Sue. I'm pretty sure that everybody's sitting a little bit better on the chair and pull the
I know. Well, you love
shoulders back and everything.
You love every time, whenever I go to an event, that I do know people as the physio and I know other people that I'm sailing with. I walk in and I start having a chat and people start having a chat. And suddenly, as I look around, all these people start putting themselves into these amazing postures. And I go, I'm not the physio. I don't care two hoots what you're doing. Stop it. You know, I'm thinking I must be really scary because literally there will be this wave of suddenly beautiful postures. So I'm like, oh, well, that's a bonus.
That's a good influence. But I mean, but then the other thing is, I mean, I've spent 30 years at least with my neck in the wrong position and my back in the wrong position. I mean,
but you can.
Yeah, like what can I get better? Is it actually worth? Yeah.
God, yeah. I mean, like all the tissues have a lifespan. The older you get, obviously you're not old, the older you get, the less elastic everything is. We all know that from the TV. But you're in a position where does anyone play the piano or a musical instrument? If you need to if you keep making the same mistake, you can't just change that note if you've been playing that tune for a long time. You have to unwrap everything. And it's a bit like those gymnasts, you know, when they said they had to basically take themselves out of the whole program. What was her name? Simone, what's it? Take herself out of the whole program and start back at the basics to get her body. I mean, our body has proprioception. If you close your eyes, you kind of know where your hand is. And you know, if you bend your elbow, how far you get before you hit your head. And our body does all these things, particularly with a complex sport like sailing, without us actually saying to us, I need to put my hand there and do this. It's all a system. But again, if you always go with your right hand, you will always end up with your right hand stronger and this bit stretching. With sailing, you've got it now. I will use this example. If you've got the laser, obviously Vanessa can vouch for this. If you've got the laser and you're on starboard, and you're right-handed and you're sitting on the boat, I wish I had a photo here, feet under the toe straps, everything's hurting, and you're pumping with your right arm, your forward arm, and you're pumping that mainsail, yeah? You're actually using your dominance, this is for your right-handers, your dominant right arm. But if you think about it, if you're right-handed, which leg do you kick a ball with? Who kicks with their right leg and who kicks with their left leg? Most of you saying right leg?
I'm ambidextrous, so don't look at me.
Anyone that's right-handed, I would imagine, and it's not right for everyone, you kick with your right, okay? Which means if you're kicking with your right, your left leg is the one that's got the stability. So when you're on the laser, you're pumping with your right and you're sitting on your left butt, which has got the stability, all right? So you can got all this coordinated movement. Now, when you're on the other side and you've got your left arm, your foot arm pumping like crazy, it starts to fatigue. You know, your muscles start to fatigue, so you start compensating. But it's also the right side, which is your non-stable side that you're sitting on. So the whole body starts to twist. So you haven't got these. So this is why I used to get all these sailors who are going around the mark, for example, on starboard on the 49er, who are pulling up that spinnaker, bending and lifting. Right side is perfect because you're standing on your left leg and pulling with your right arm. Going on this leg, you can see the spinnakers are going up in one chunk, little chunk, one chunk, little chunk. That's not effective. That's not productive. And most of you will be asymmetric. Now, not all of you, but if you're in that situation, start doing things like get off the bike on the other side, go and answer the door on the other side, change the bed over. You know, they're all things that our body has started to teach itself from when we first start doing things. Now, there's nothing wrong with being asymmetrical, except it wears things out differently. And that's the trick. And this is where your neck, the symmetry here, you will have a fulcrum in your neck and your thoracic spine, this bit here, will be stiff. And what you've got in your spine, your lumbar spine, these bits of bones, all right, go up and down. They don't twist very well. This bit of your spine, your thoracic spine, which is the one that bends over, this is where you get rotation. Can you see these bones actually rotate? They're all actually different shape. These 5 lumbar and these 12 thoracic have different shapes, and they actually have different habits. They have different qualities. So if you're in this position, you can't rotate them as well. So you start getting these fulcrums at the change of bones, and you start getting these fulcrums at the neck with the thoracic spine. And this is where you start to get these loading up of pain. And this is where your muscles start to react by trying to make you into that protected position. And this is where, again, when it's 5 knots of breeze, you need a 5-knot rig tension with your body as well. When it's 25 knots, you do need more tension, which is why when you lift a heavy box, your muscles have tightened up. So you will get core muscles turning on without you knowing it, as long as you haven't had pain. If you have pain, they tend to turn off. But anyone that goes around and says, turn on these core muscles to make yourself really tight, drives me crazy. It's like having rig tension like this, but then you don't ease off. So this is why it's important to work out other stretches to change your posture from this, to remind yourself that that is normal, or are they there to lengthen out areas, or are they there to warm you up? Right, I've actually said enough.
I love it.
Great, Sue. I think it's been a wonderful reminder of the importance of preparing your body beforehand, and actually at the end of the day, stretching it out the other way, you know. And I actually love that tip about when you're actually rigging the boat, because you know, as someone who's spent years trimming a spinnaker, looking up like that, you know, it is really hard, and you know, you really do need to get your body working the other way.
And replace your electrolytes. That's the other thing.
Okay. Yes.
I've loved watching everybody, and myself included. I'm sitting here like stretching while I'm listening to you. I've got a funny story for you though, Sue. You'll love this one. So my dad sailed me in the juniors when he was younger, and when he was about 8 or 9, his mum took him to the doctor because he was so worried about him, because he had this massive left bicep. And like huge bicep, like malformed, and said to the doctor, you know, like, what's going on? And so the doctor said to my dad, like, what are you doing? And so whenever he was on port tack, he was steering with his right arm, main sheet in his left arm. like that, and then he would tack over and he would keep his arms exactly the same way. Main sheet in his left arm, steering with his right arm. So it was actually his left arm that ended up being massive. And still to this day, he's better at steering on port than starboard. But he had to learn to like actually uncross his hands on starboard tack.
Imagine, and again, Paralympic sailing, and I'm sure a lot of you know, if you've got one arm and you're on starboard and you've got a fully functional left arm, everything's fine. You can turn around, you can see. But if you're on port and you're steering with that arm, you can't rotate. So this poor old neck has to do horrible ranges to be able to see over the shoulder. And then the body starts actually acquiring all these little tricks because it thinks it's doing a good job by finding these compensations. But it will always go down the path of least resistance. So don't forget, your body loves to cheat. It thinks it's doing a good job, but it will cheat. Anyway.
So what you're saying is no cheat days.
No, this is why everyone, when I see them, it's so funny, you know, I'm there at the bar and they're all going, oh. You wait till I see you all next time. There's going to be this, but don't forget, it's not upright. It's not upright. It's actually flexibility. Remember, your back is like any rig that's made of different constructions. Like when you've got steel and wood and carbon and you fit them all together, it will have different properties, and your body has properties. So the movement is what you're after. And the stability at the level of the movement that you are required to have is what you need. Don't overstimulate, don't overactivate. And this is where a lot of these classes have problems, because everyone's told to turn these muscles on. Well, they're already on the level they need to be. Does that make sense?
Perfect.
You know, when Karen, when you talk about the coaching, you talk about changing the gears with everyone, like as you go through a wind change.
We definitely do.
Yeah, so that's it. Your body's the same.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Right,
that has been a great introduction to what we should be doing with our bodies. And now I'd like to welcome Vanessa to talk to us a little bit more about what else we can do to be a really valuable crew.
That was great. Thanks, Sue. I was just thinking of what I was told, which was to thrust the bust.
Use that Dolly Parton, I call it. Dolly Parton posture.
Yeah. And anyway, being fit is a huge part of sailing. There's no question. I'm different fitness for different types of boats, but yeah, I think I'm hoping to do the Hobart race this year, and it really worries me that I'm not going to be fit enough because, well, for starters, we haven't really had a chance to do any offshore sailing or much sailing at all. So it's all going to be a bit of a worry, I think. But I was going to talk about being a great crew besides the physical aspect, and I've got a presentation that Nick might be able to put up. Okay, yeah, so I thought I was only planning to talk for about 10 or 12 minutes. I might ramble on a bit more, but look, I just thought I'd concentrate on 5 sort of topics. Some of what I say might be a bit too basic. I know a lot of you are very experienced sailors, so the thing is that I think the same basic principles apply no matter what level you're at. And the great thing about sailing is the team sport aspect, the social element. This photo shows, I think, just that element of trust, and everyone's got their job there and they're doing it. There's probably not a lot of need for talk. Everyone knows what they're doing and concentrating, and just the thrill of being part of a functioning team, I think is, I find it so exciting. I think we're so lucky. I mean, having said that, I do spend a lot of time sailing a laser, which might be a bit of a reflection on my my skills being part of a team. But I have to say up the front of this talk, I actually was voted most valuable player on a 100-footer in a Hobart race by the 20 other crew members. And I think probably a lot of people that know me would find that very surprising, because I'm often just an arrow dart on the helm. But I'll tell you why I got the most valuable player, but I might save it for the end of the talk, where I'm going to talk a bit about offshore. So anyway, on to the 5 top tips. So Nick, be prepared. It's the same for everything, but definitely the preparation of the boat. I love this photo from the Fastnet start this year. Probably a lot of you watched it like I did. It was howling and the tide was against the wind, and all these boats set off all afternoon into this horrible seaway. And that boat, it's just snugged down. They've obviously prepared it really well for the conditions. It's comfortable. And I think with all our sailing, the more preparation that everyone does, and not just the owner of the boat, but all the crew members, the better the whole experience for everyone's going to be. And as a crew member, I think it's, thinking about the weather, even several days ahead of the race, even if it's just a club race, what is that race? What race is it? Is it going to be a long race, short race? Have a look at the sailing instructions. Those sort of things aren't just the responsibility of the owner or the tactician. Everyone, the more that everyone on the boat knows what's going to happen, the better. Keeping an eye on the weather, that enables you to know what clothes you're going to need, so you bring the right stuff and you're not going to be rifling through your crew bag down below. What length of time you're going to be out, so you don't have to be starting to worry about, are you going to be late for something else? Just so that you can be really focused on the day. I think if you can know what your role's going to be on the boat, that's all the better. Sometimes you don't really know until you get there, and it can vary from week to week. And if it's going to be a role, if it's going to be a role that you haven't done before, I think that's where you kind of need to be honest. It's really hard to, it can be hard to put yourself forward for a new role, and it also can be hard to put yourself back if a new role gets offered to you. But I think in fairness to the crew, if it's a role that you haven't done before, you need to say that up front, so that the rest of the crew can either talk you through it, or on reflection, perhaps someone else should do it, because in the end, it's the whole point of, I think, sailing, crewing. It's not you being the star, it's supporting the whole crew and making sure the boat gets around the course well. So use every minute, I think, on the way up to the start. That's all valuable time to be assessing what's going on and getting your brain around what your job's going to be. The next point, Nick, every crew role really does count. And I mean, who hasn't broached a boat? And I think it's funny, every role, it doesn't matter how minor you might think it is. Like you might, I know I have at times just thought, oh God, I've got to do bloody this. That's all, I should be doing that. But it might be, you might be sitting on the side and someone says, hey, grab the vang, we're going to go on this tight reach. That role of hanging onto the boom vang could be the most important role of the whole day. Yeah. And if you do it well, no one might even know how well you did it, because I guess with any role, if you get given it, and it can be at like a moment's notice, you need to really be able to think, right, you mightn't even get much of a chance. Like if there's a possibility to get someone to tell you what's involved, if you haven't done it before, all the better. But if you get, the vang, you're going to have to let that off if the boat heels over. So it's really important. I mean, you could just go, okay, I'll just hang on to this. and then the boat starts to heel over, they're yelling for the bang, and then you can't get it out of the cleat. So you have this massive broach. But if you've sort of got ahead of the game and tested, like got yourself in a position that you can actually get it out of the cleat before, so you know that you can get it out of the cleat, you feel you're sensitive to the heel of the boat, so you get ahead of the game and ease it as the boat starts to heel. The helm and the main, and like they may not even notice that you've eased it, but the boat hasn't broached. So I guess sometimes being part of a crew, it's not about glory, that's for sure. It's about doing what's required, and like you know that you've contributed, and it's all part of that, being part of a team. Yeah. I guess the third point I have is really to focus on the things that matter. And that's the reason I put that. I sailed with this great skipper who, when we used to get, when we'd get back in a race or something and everyone would be getting, you know, a bit distracted or whatever, he'd go, come on, guys, concentrate. And you sort of think, well, concentrate on what? Like it varies from role to role, but there's sort of two main areas that we've got, which is like the boat itself, like the actual jobs that we have to do on the boat to keep it running at its most efficient. And then there's the big picture, the strategy, what's happening with the wind, what the other boats are doing. And we need to focus on both, but at different times. So, you know, if you're given, if your role it comes in and out of importance at different times of the race on the actual boat, and then your role mightn't actually be so much to contribute to what's happening outside the boat. But the more you can, when you're not actually focused on a particular job, the more you can take in about what's happening around the boat, the better. And that's, you know, the flags on the harbour bridge, what the wind's doing, where the other boats are going, all that sort of information. I thought about the actual, just going back to concentrating on your role on the boat. I always think of this fellow that a lot of you probably know, Larry Jamieson, told me a story where he went on a boat in the Admiral's Cup in England, and they had an absolute rock star forward hand, and Larry kind of got thrown into doing the pit at quite short notice on this boat, and he's a very good sailor, but for whatever reason, when he was doing the topping lift on the spinnaker pole, he lost concentration or didn't know that particular boat well enough, and he actually, instead of easing the topping lift and the pole went down, he actually sort of let it go, and the pole banged down on the head of this rock star forward hand, and who just kept doing what was necessary up the front, cleared up all the spinnaker and everything was sort of carried on. And then finally he came back and sat on the rail, and Larry turned around to him to say, oh, I'm really sorry. And the guy just completely decked him, just punched him in the head. And so I don't think we're quite as hard on each other on when we're
that's aggressive.
That's aggressive, yeah. But they're the sort of, yeah, that level of concentration on your jobs can lead to injuries to other people. It can lead to damage to the boat if you don't manage something properly. Look, I can think of situations where I've caused damage. I've got a classic which was actually after a race, because you really need to keep focusing until you get back to the dock. And we'd finished a winter's race on 40-footer, and yeah, unfortunately, when we were tidying up all the ropes, I just sort of lost concentration, and I was pulling in a sheet, pulling it, you know, wrapping it up, and the next thing the engine stopped, and sure enough, I hadn't really kept control of this sheet, and it had gone over the side and wrapped around the prop of the engine, and that caused, there was quite a lot of damage to the prop. We had to sail back to the mooring in Middle Harbour, which took forever. It ruined the day for everybody, cost the helm, cost the owner money, was really embarrassing. So they're the sort of things that we focus on the boat. But then the outside the boat focus, that's an interesting aspect of how we communicate what we see. And I've actually been quite tricky. I've actually neglected to include my fourth point, which was to communicate carefully. There's nothing worse when you're helming a boat than you hear someone on the rail, or someone will call back, "Oh my God, those boats over there are killing us," or "Oh, this guy's doing 2 to our 1," and you're helming and you just go like that, and the boat goes like that, and that's probably not the most effective way to communicate. So I think it's good, first of all, to before a race to really feel out whether your input's needed. If you're, is it going to be just certain people talking, or how's the best way to communicate things that you see on that boat? So what and when are you communicating to the team? And then my fifth point, which is look for ways that you can extend your experience. And I think that's the most fantastic thing about sailing, is the different types of sailing that we can do. And on the left there, that's our laser club at Middle Harbour. We're mostly old people that have got back into dinghy sailing. It's can be pretty confronting, dinghy sailing. There's nowhere to hide. If you have a bad race, it's all on you. But the thing is that I'd really recommend it if you wanted to get a better feel of, if you haven't had that opportunity when you were younger, if you've come into sailing as an adult. The great thing about dinghy sailing is that it really gives you a feel for how boats react to wind and waves, and it's harder to get that feel on a keelboat. The dinghy, it's instantaneous, and how you move your body and how you trim the sails, you just get that direct response to what the boat does. So it's very valuable. And then on the right-hand side, I actually have ended up owning this 27-foot supersonic. She's a fat little slow thing. She was just a hot ship, I think, when she was first launched, but that was many, many years ago. And that's a really great way to extend experience as well, because I've always sailed on, when it's come to keelboats, I've always sailed on other people's boats, and now I'm the responsible one. And it's very interesting. I think for other boat owners in the group, you'll probably agree with me, you really need to think about the experience of your crew, and not put the boat in positions where you're asking too much of people. It's just unfair, and it spoils everyone's experience. And I know I did the Twilight series with Ramble, that's my boat, last season at the Amateurs, and I had my brother and my sister-in-law come along, and they're not experienced sailors, and if I had one other experienced sailor, it'd be fine. Everything was really, really great, and Graham and Rose had a great time. And then some nights it was just me and them and my niece, and they're all inexperienced, but I wasn't smart enough to back off and just take it a bit more easy. We still sort of doing the race, and it kind of ended in tears, really. I ended up shouting at my brother, and the things that get said can't be unsaid. So I'll just move on to offshore sailing then, which was just in case it's the next slide. Yeah, offshore can be a bit of a nightmare, but it's fun. I mean, I've loved I've not loved every minute, that'd be a lie, but I've loved getting to the end of every Hobart race. That's always been fantastic. And just in case there's people in the group that might be planning for this year's Hobart or a future one, I just had some general thoughts, which was really get as much preparation as you can. It's hard at the moment with with COVID messing it up for everyone, but it's more than just the crewing. I guess it's a whole endurance event where you really, the things that you really need to focus on, as well as the sailing skills, are how to look after yourself and how to be a good contributor through the whole race right to the end. And you really need to look for ways to get your rest, which can be really hard. Sometimes you don't always get your off watch, but any opportunity you really have to sometimes force yourself. Like there might be a really beautiful sunset or something and you can sort of look at it, but then you really do need to try and, if you're off watch, you need to make the most of that. You really need to be on time for your watches. That's kind of a big no-no, being late. It's not if it's a 40-footer, it's not a 40-foot gear bag. That's you always have to be sort of really neat. And the other thing is, it's unbelievable on offshore yachts and races and sails everywhere. And if you put your gloves down just while you're getting changed, you'll lose one for sure. And you just will not be able to find it. And it won't get found till you've finished and the boat's been cleaned up. So you have to think about all these different things which aren't the normal sort of Saturday afternoon things. You sort of have to look for ways to be useful that aren't necessarily to do with the sailing aspect. They're just keeping aware of how everyone else is tracking, I suppose. I think we're better at that. Women are already dialed into that, but that sort of brings me to why I got the Most Valuable Player award in the that particular Hobart on that 100-foot maxi. But there was all these really giant, big, strong fellas. But I got the award, and the reason was because I cleaned up after this terrible toilet disaster. And more fool me, I did it just because it needed to be done, and it really was the most disgraceful. It was a pretty grueling experience. But then the worst thing was that there was another terrible toilet disaster in the same race, and then they came and got me because I'd cleaned up the first time. So, duds, the toilet, you got to clean the toilet. So, which I did. And then there you go, I was Most Valuable Player. So you never know. Offshore sailing can be a little bit different from the normal racing. And then, I just had one more final slide, which it's a bit of a, there's one, that's, I just think sailing is just the best ever. And I love this photo. This is a photo from a Southport race. Quite a few years ago, I took the photo, but I just thought, and they're all fellas that were all really good to, actually Gail's in the background there, the little cap, Gail Harland. And that whole race, we either went that fast or even faster. It was just this incredible ride to Southport on a 40-footer. And the thing is that I think with sailing, the more you do, you end up having these incredible experiences as part of a team, and you have that between you forever, and it makes up for all the really like heavy rain, becalmed, all those experiences that weren't quite as good. So I just think it's the best sport, and the more you can, contribute to a team and learn what's involved with the different roles, the more fantastic it gets. So there you go.
Excellent. Well said.
That was so good, Vanessa. Thank you so much. And I've put your 6 points, because I put offshore as a separate point as well for everybody. I've put them in the chat if anybody wants a note. Kirsten actually asked if I could take a note, so I did. So they're just there in the chat for anybody who wants them. So I think I love that. Basically the whole element of a good crew makes their skipper look good, basically, is what you were explaining.
Yeah, that's right. Without because I mean, when the boat broaches, everyone says, "Oh, who was driving?" So it's embarrassing for the helm, but that's probably the least of the problem. It's just that feeling you get when you do a role well. Any role on a boat, I think, is really gold. Yeah.
Absolutely. We've got some questions coming through. So I think it's Marjorie. Do you want to ask your question? Marjorie, passing you the mic. Or I can ask it for you, whichever you prefer. I might go ahead and ask it. So basically, Marjorie says, great presentation. In terms of communicating roles on the boat, what do you recommend as a strategy for communicating who's doing what? Do you have a strategy when you get on board to talk about communication?
Oh, yeah, okay. Look, it does vary from boat to boat, that's for sure. But I think you do need, you sort of can't have everyone shouting back, gust in 5, gust in 4. So generally you'll have one person calling the weather. And again, it depends on the size of the boat, but I think it's really important to have a little chat of everybody on the way to the start, even just for a club race. It might sound a bit taking it all too seriously, but it focuses, it sort of sets out how it's going to be. And I mean, we don't have the same crew every week as well, so you've usually got someone that's not a regular, or so I really I've sailed a lot on bigger boats where I've been lucky and been the driver, but then that's all I've done. I've just done what I'm told, as far as there'd be someone else calling all the shots, and that's a perfect opportunity, because you often see, when you come around the bottom mark and the spinnaker's, still spinnaker, and then you'll have the person steering who's also going, hey, get that, pull that red one, and then the boat's not being steered properly. And so ideally you have someone who's not the driver giving whatever actual crew management instruction, and you sort of have someone who's the information gatherer, who would probably be the one calling it back, but other people are feeding it to them, I suppose. Yeah. Another thing I'd just say about, as far as when you get, can you do a role, and you mightn't be that confident, or you mightn't have done it, ask questions. It's really I think I've been really poor over the years. It can be hard to ask. It can be a little bit sort of embarrassing, but it can be amazing what people will tell you. And there's a real place for coaching as well. Like, I think I would have been well into, done numerous Hobarts before someone actually taught me the real nuts and bolts of using winches. I mean, I sort of knew how to use them, but we got on a bigger boat, and then we had coaching from Mike Fletcher, and it was just, oh, right, okay, yeah, coaching's really valuable. I think we don't do it enough in sailing.
Yeah, definitely. And then like you say as well, it's probably even more important to break down the communication when you might have people who are newer to the sport on board as well. I went out on Sunday on my VX with my partner, who's new to sailing. That was his 5th time, and he's only ever sailed on a VX, and my dog. So it was just me, and you definitely have to break things down and slow things down a little bit, I think, and remember what level you've got on board. But I think what you've laid out is basically an amazing sort of cliff notes on how to crew and how to do it so well. And I remember before you'd come back to the laser as well. So I think you being mean to yourself at the start and saying that maybe that's why you ended up on a laser is a bit unfair. I saw you come through the ranks in the laser and do fantastic things. I think the reason why you were good at crewing for yourself was because you were such a good crew. So let's be a bit nice to you about that. But we have one more question, and I think I'm going to bring. Well, I'm going to go back to gallery view because it might be more of a discussion point actually, and I don't want to take away from the fact that both Sue and Vanessa have shared an amazing amount of information with us tonight. But the last question is, and I think Karen can very much answer this as well because she's been involved in it for her whole life as well. So are there any specific suggestions for battling the male heavy, women not as strong issue? So we might start with Vanessa, how you managed to deal with that in an offshore, and then a laser radial situation where you have beat up on the boys. So, I mean, do you have to deal with it, or do you just get on with it, or do you have any tips for dealing with taking on roles that maybe might be seen as being strength related roles? I mean, Vanessa, how do you cope with that situation?
Yeah, I suppose because I got to sail, I did 5 Hobarts on the 100-footer Ragamuffin, and look, to be honest, there's big strong guys. I used to watch them. If there'd be some catastrophe up on the bow, and they'd all just, it was like troops running into battle. They just love it, the big strong guys, and they come back all beaten and bloodied, and they've had an awesome time. They just I don't know, that's not me. And but it doesn't have to. Yeah, there are definitely roles in sailing that need strength. But then, look, I did that Hobart with the women's crew on the Wild Oats 10, and we had a really good bow. We had good mast. We had strong women. There's ways of figuring out how to do things, and then you look at the women in the solo around the world, the One Day Glow, they're amazing, those women. And yeah, you can find ways to do it. So I don't think it has to be as macho as it is, but that is the way a lot of people like it to be, I suppose. So
I'm going to bust. Sorry, when you're done, I'm going to butt in there with the string.
Yeah, I'm probably starting to ramble a bit, but
no, you're not rambling. I'm just conscious of everybody's time, but you're not rambling. You're not rambling.
Over. Yeah,
no.
Yeah, I'm just going to say, whatever you do as a sailor, don't underestimate yourself. Like, as I said to you, when someone's putting a sail on the foredeck, go and help, and you'll find out that you can be as much part of it as they are. Like, as Vanessa said, big, beefy, 120 kilo guys can pull something, but if you're not pulling up the last bit, they can't do it, Like, just trust yourself. And if you put in, people 99.9% of the time, they will want you back. So much of sailing is the effort that you focus. Now, you can get in the way. You can be a nuisance. But my big thing is, whenever I sail on a boat, particularly a new boat, get down there early. If you can do that with all the time constraints, just get down there early. Whoever's down there early, go through setting the boat up. Go through where all the sheets are going. Go through where everything is. Go through where the sails are. And it doesn't matter, like Vanessa, cleaning out the toilet. When someone says, can someone go down and get a sail? Just already be ready to go. Like, you can't push it up on your own, but if you go down and be part of that group that's pushing it up, as Vanessa says, they might not recognize that. They might not know you've done it, but you know what? You've done it, and therefore you know what the next stage should be. So I sail with so many people when I say, right, is everyone ready for the next mark? And everyone goes, well, what mark? And you go, well, this is where we need to actually systematically go through. If you've got the pole on the wrong side for the next mark, you've actually got to systematically go through this. And if your brain's better than the strength, which, you know, not always, but we try and use our brains, use your brain to set things up where you don't have to use brute force.
100%.
Because brute force doesn't work. They've still got to use their brains, but half the time, once they've done something and it didn't work, they've got to use brute strength to actually correct it. But think about it yourself. And look at what people are doing. Like Vanessa says, when you're on the rail and someone's calling the breeze, sit next to them and just say, well, what are you looking at? You know, and like she said, there is so much information. When you're racing, it's hard for you to go through a systematic process. But if you're sitting on the rail next to the person that's calling the breeze, just think about it in your brain. What are they saying? Is it going to match what you think? And talk to them. A lot of people will give on boats.
100%. And so I'm going to paraphrase what Vanessa said as basically as her last point. Well, the notes that I put in the chat for you all, basically get as much experience of the experience as you can. Look after yourself, which ties back to Sue's entire discussion, which was fantastic. Work out how to contribute through any race. And that, I think, is basically what everybody has said today, which is be as useful as you can. And I think that then makes you a really good sailor. It's about being useful in the moment and when it matters. And that all comes down to experience. And Karen, I mean, you've and I know we've spoken a lot about the female versus male strength thing, but you're one of the strongest women I've known. I remember watching you sail in 35 knots of breeze in Maiden Blick on your Yingling, and holding onto that spinnaker like nothing else. So I know, maybe give us just some final words, and then I think we're going to talk about tomorrow and the next day, which I'm excited about.
Thanks so much, Vanessa and Sue and Nick, for joining us tonight. It's been fantastic. But I do think it's a great lead into the idea of this weekend. So a challenge. You know, we were really frustrated we weren't able to hold the Ladies of the Sea coaching regatta this weekend. Of course, we all want to go sailing, but we also figured we don't, especially if the weekend's going to be beautiful weather, we do not want to be locked inside. And so we thought, let's get active, and we want to get out there. So I think Sarah Ladd is going to give us a quick, Nick, can you just make sure she can share her screen?
Yeah, 100%.
But the idea being that we can get out and we can go stand-up paddleboarding, we can go running, supping, sailing, dancing, whatever. But the idea is go and be active and share it with us. So yes, we can share our activity via some sort of GPS tracking. Strava actually offers that sort of thing, but there's lots of different apps out there that will help you track what you're doing. But even if you don't want to get into the tracking, send us a photo of what you're doing. I'm going to hand over to Sarah now. You ready to go, Sarah?
Yeah, all ready to go. Can everyone see my screen?
I think we can.
Great, thank you so much. So as Karen was saying, we have a little challenge for this weekend since we can't go sailing. So that's split into 4 parts. So there's different areas that you can compete in. The first one is the most creative Strava art. And you can see on the right-hand side of the screen, there's a picture of a shark that someone's drawn while they've been exercising. And
is that a baby shark?
I guess, does that mean that you're going to draw a bigger shark for us on Strava, Nick? So, yeah, I mean, you can find all sorts of examples of different art that people have made. I even found what looked like a skiff with somebody on trapeze off the side that someone had drawn on Strava. So we'll have a competition around that, where you can, sharks or anything like that. The second part of that is with the sailing theme. Best photo is the third category, and this can either be shared in Strava or you can send that through email. And then the fourth one is the greatest length of time exercising, and that can be, as Karen said, anything, stand-up paddleboarding, walking, cycling.
That won't be me.
If you can sail, like anything that you want to do. Anyone that's registered for the Strava challenge will receive an email from me a little bit later with some more details of this. and how to sign up for Strava, some basic details of that. If you need any more support, just feel free to email us, and we have a few people that can help you out with exactly what issue you're having. And I think, is that everything, Karen? Did I miss anything?
No, I think that was great, Sarah. So we'll send everybody a reminder of how to get involved after this. Thanks so much for joining us. Go and enjoy your Friday night. Start thinking about what you can do before we get back out on the water. And, you know, we really are, fingers crossed, we're going to be out there soon. It's imminent. So thanks for joining us. Have a great long weekend, and join us on Monday night if you'd like. We're going to kick off. It will be the same link that you're using tonight. And we're going to share the activities that we've seen over the weekend. So
yeah,
enjoy.
A quick thanks before you all go. I think a round of applause. Take yourselves off mute. Thank you to Sue. Thank you to Vanessa. Thank you to Karen for organising.
Thank you, Nick Douglas.
Yeah, I won't be winning the most exercised person. That won't be me. Yeah, good.
Thanks. That's because you're in Canberra and it's too cold down there.
Too cold and stormy.
But it doesn't have to be long or very long.
I'll draw a pretty
picture.
To be
something funny.
Exactly. I will do my best for something funny.
Silly, that we can have a laugh about it.
Excellent. Perfect. Thanks, everyone. Nice to see you all.
Have a good weekend. Talk soon. Thank you.